Hi, I'm Rachel from Rachel's Guest Tutor at Pretty Witty Cakes, and in today's fab freebie tutorial I'm going to talk a little bit about delivering actual wedding cakes and cupcakes and mini cakes. So just a few little tips and things that I do at home in order to get my cake safely from my kitchen all the way to the venue. Okay, so it's all very well making some towering monstrosity 6 tiers high in your kitchen and look at it and go, wow, look what I made. Well, it isn't any good if you can't get it to the hotel 3 miles into London and round Piccadilly Circus. So yeah, there are some key things that you need to remember. So we'll talk about wedding cakes first. So here is my cake and it's in my box, okay? So these boxes that I use them over and over and over again. So I have 3 or 4 in different sizes that I might use for transporting my cake. And they're called heavy duty cake boxes. Now I've got a cake in here now. If I spin that round, you can see I've got this little contraption on here, and this is just what I do. So when you buy these heavy duty cake boxes, they actually come on the inside with another insert with 2 little handles on that's supposed to help you lift your cake in and out. Well, my personal opinion is it's useless and I don't use that bit at all. So rather than closing up the box the way that it's supposed to be closed, that flap would go down and this would all be sealed and solid, I fix it back up the wrong way round. I hope this makes sense. I fix it back up the wrong way round like that, and I make a little hole, okay? And then I put that piece of wire around and that holds it together. Firstly, that helps me when I get to the venue, open my box and slide my cake out, as opposed to this all being shut up and me having to lean in over my cake and try and pick it up from the bottom like that. Also, your cake is so heavy, that's quite hard to do without squashing your fingers into the icing. So tip number 1, that's how I secure my box, and I've literally just put a pair of scissors or a skewer through there and used a piece of wire to hold that together, okay? When your cake is in the box, I like to put underneath it a piece of non-slip matting, okay? That's going to stop your cake from sliding around underneath the base, okay? So this piece of non-slip mat would be in here and underneath my cake. So I would actually put the matting in first, okay? So it's going to sit nice and neatly underneath the cake. That's a little bit too big. So we'll just push that up for now. Okay, so that's going to stop it sliding around. We've got our little piece of wire, and I would just put that back through and twiddle it round just to secure my box, like that. Then, to protect my actual cake, a long time ago from a company that I used to buy my boxes from, you could buy these sleeves. So this is why this looks a little bit sellotaped together. It's actually got various things written on it. But you could buy this nice big thick cardboard heavy duty sleeve. And this, let's bring it up and over, actually fits up and over the box, okay? So I'm just on tippy toes now, so I make sure that it's going down. There you go. So that fits nicely over your box. And then you would then put the lid on, okay, just in case it rained. All right, so your cake is now completely secure. It's not going to slide around and it's in its box, okay? Remember when you're carrying your cake that this is a sleeve, so you're always going to have to put your hands underneath the base of the box so the sleeve doesn't fall off. This would then go in my car, okay? So I'll just push that out of the way for a minute. When I'm putting the cake in my car, it always goes in my boot, and my boot is completely flat, okay? And I also have another piece of non-slip mat in there to make sure that this doesn't slide around when it's in the back of my car. So everything is really, really secure. Don't balance it on a passenger seat because they're never completely flat. Same as if you're transporting a small celebration cake or cupcakes, just put everything nice and flat in your boot so it doesn't slip around. So non-slip mat, good protective box, and a non-slip mat underneath the cake on the inside. I've got another sleeve here actually. Another company started making them. They're slightly thinner. Often if I'm doing celebration cakes or smaller cakes, I still put a sleeve around just to cover that extra bit of height on the cake. So these do come in different widths to fit different size boxes, okay? So that's what I call a sleeve. When you're transporting your cake, say it was a big one, a 5-tier cake, I almost never transport 5-tier cakes. I split them into 2 parts and I will assemble them when I get to the venue. Mostly because you can't always rely on other people's driving. Sometimes they suddenly appear out of a junction and you've got to put your brakes on. The taller your cake is, the more unstable it's going to be if someone pulls out in front of you and gives you a bit of a shock, okay? So I would then decide as a confident cake designer where to split my cake. And I would transport it in the same manner with my sleeve on the non-slip mat. But it would be in 2 parts and I would have my kit with me and my royal icing and my piping bags and everything that I needed to make that cake look nice, and I would put it together at the venue. And I promise you that as you're driving along, you will just feel so much less stressed if your cake is in 2 pieces than if you're driving and wondering whether that 5 or 6 tier cake has just crumbled in the boot of your car. So do put it in 2 parts. That will make life a lot easier. If your cake is a chocolate cake, do make sure that you've refrigerated it fully if it's something that can go in the fridge before transportation, because I did once make the mistake of beautifully making some cake covered in chocolate cigarellos, and it looked fantastic and it had got to room temperature and I thought it was all going to be fine, and I'm merrily driving along to the venue and my little cigarellos start falling off because the chocolate has warmed up in the temperature of my car. Leading on, there's a lot of chit chat here, leading on to which when you're putting your cake in your car, please make sure that it's not been sat in 30 degrees of heat and your cake just goes into the boot of the car and you slam the boot and you go and make your last cup of tea before you leave. You need to start up the engine if it's a hot day, get the aircon circulating, make sure you've got a nice cool temperature in the car, and don't leave that cake in a hot car for much longer than just 5 minutes, okay? Keep the car running and don't put it in your car till the last minute. So that's what you do on a hot day. The other side of it, on a really cold day, don't put your cake in the car too early and let it get really cold, because then when it goes into a nice warm room in a nice snuggly venue where the fire is going, if it's got really cold, or you've left it in there overnight thinking, oh, it'll be safe, it'll start to sweat and the outside will become sticky. So bear all that in mind. When it comes to transporting cupcakes or mini cakes, again, you can buy these fantastic cupcake boxes. I'm sure lots of you know about them, but for those novices, rather than just having loose cupcakes, just imagine there's some cakes in here. Don't just have loose cupcakes rattling around in the bottom of a box. You get these lovely boxes with perfect inserts. And for cupcake transportation, there's not much you can do wrong, because once your cupcake is sat within that little holder, it's not going to slip around and the box is going to protect it, okay? Again, you need to remember, don't go leaving butter ice cupcakes in a car that's too hot. Of course, they're going to melt and go soft, okay? And also, don't put this on the seat of your car, particularly in the front, because if you do break, it's going to fly off really easily. So make sure it's nice and flat in the boot, on the non-slip mat, and then you've done everything you can to protect your cupcakes. Lots of people, we'll finish up by saying, lots of people do ask me how I transport mini cakes. This is a bit of an old one, so apologies if it looks a little bit tarnished. How do we transport that? How do we transport 20 of them? Okay. You could get yourself a cake box. Imagine that it doesn't have this insert in. Or it could even be the large heavy duty box that we've been using for our wedding cakes. You can put non-slip mat underneath your little mini cakes. It does help to a certain extent for them not to slide around. So I would get a silver board, and it would be the same size as my cake. So say this looks like it's about 10 inches wide. So I'd have my 10-inch wide square cake box. I sometimes would put a little blob of royal icing on the base of each of my mini cakes, and I would just sit it there. And that bit of suction with that royal icing is just going to stop that cake sliding. Because if your cakes are just like that and there's any movement, they're all going to clunk together and all the decoration's going to break off, okay? So a tiny little blob of royal icing, and then you would line them all up individually. Another little safety trick that I do also do, depending on the decor on the cakes, is I get a little bit of bubble wrap and I start to cut it into strips. And once my cakes are all lined up, I would weave this bubble wrap in and out of my cake. So if there happened to be any slippage of mini cake, it's going to gently knock into that bubble wrap before it smashes off the side of the beautiful rose that you've spent ages making. Okay, so that is how I transport my cupcakes, my mini cakes and my big cakes. Good luck!